So let's start off with talking about and defining what are microaggressions. So as these phrases populate on the screen, I'd like you to take a second to reflect on them. These phrases are often seen as small, but to the person receiving them, it can feel monumental. These microaggressions, even though they may just come off as mere comments, or in some cases they're intended to be compliments, they can carry a sting. They're not trivial. They're reminders that the person receiving them is being seen as an outsider, that they don't belong in said space. And for the receiver, it's like a constant barrage of subtle yet hurtful messages that attempts to steal a person's dignity and confidence bit by bit. What might appear as a casual remark or a compliment to one, in reality to a receiver, can be a painful, diminishing experience. And if you engage in these interactions over and over and over again, they accumulate over time, and it creates an environment where that person is constantly vigilant for any type of emotional or physical attack in some cases, and can lead to emotional fatigue. So these aren't small experiences. So let's turn our attention to a pivotal figure, Dr. Chester M. Pierce. He was a Harvard-trained psychiatrist, and he was a person who actually coined the term microaggressions to describe the subtle yet impactful racial offenses encountered by Black individuals. His insights emerged from his own experiences, including being the first African American to play in a major college football team in the segregated South. His life and work shed light on the nuanced ways racism manifests, even in seemingly innocuous interactions. So let's take a minute to look at his stories, and then we'll go into another.
Harvard-trained psychiatrist Chester M. Pierce, MD, coined the term to specifically describe racial microaggressions. Dr. Pierce pointed out, these offensive mechanisms used against Black people are often innocuous. In short, they were subtle enough to go undetected by the majority and often overlooked by them. It's worth noting that he also called these acts pro-racist behavior. Long before he became a globally acclaimed psychiatrist, Chester Pierce became the first African American to play in a major college football game at an all-white university south of the Mason-Dixon line at the University of Virginia, only months after Jackie Robinson brought down baseball's color barrier. The year was 1947. College football at the time operated under what was euphemistically called a gentleman's agreement. When a school from the South wished to host a racially integrated team from another region, the visiting school would agree to leave any Black players behind, and the home team would attempt to negate any competitive advantage by benching corresponding players of equivalent talent. When Harvard turned down the Virginia Cavaliers' request in the fall of 1947, the Cavaliers eventually relented, but they still insisted on separate accommodations and imposed other arrangements for Pierce. While Pierce was allowed to eat with the rest of the team in the hotel's dining room, he wasn't permitted to enter through the main hotel entrance. Dick Harlow, the Crimson's head coach, only agreed with the arrangement on the sole condition that other teammates also stayed where Pierce was staying. He then instructed his team to use the same back entrance Pierce was being asked to use. According to Pierce, Harlow also insisted that he walk alongside him when the team walked from the visitors' locker room out to the field, a gesture which Pierce considered courageous. Not surprisingly, Pierce and his team endured obscenities and racial slurs throughout the game. Dr. Pierce went on to specialize in how people react to extreme environments and racial relations. His varied professional work spanned such disparate areas, from advising NASA, helping develop and launch the beloved children's program Sesame Street, and helping to establish a practice of global psychiatry, which focuses on improving mental health training, research, and clinical care in the international community.
So after watching watching Dr. Pierce's story, I invite you to have a deeper, more introspective reflection. Consider how microaggressions, there we go. Consider how microaggressions, which can be subtle yet pervasive in our culture, mirror the challenges you might face in your role as an equity leader. I placed some questions on the screen for you to reflect on in your journal. So one of the things that I'm asking you to do is to think back to the moments when you witnessed or experienced a microaggression. What was your immediate reaction? How did you react in the moment? Did you address it? Did you stay silent? Or were you unsure of how to respond? And then once you answer that question, I'd like for you to evaluate how your reaction actually contributed to or challenged the status quo of equity and inclusion in that community or in that situation. What do these reactions reveal about your current equity leadership skills? And the final thing that I'd like for you to reflect on is, based on these reflections, what are some areas where you can grow? Where can you improve on responding to microaggressions, and how can you better use your power and position to foster a more inclusive environment?